Hello, I'm Richard Lacey. Today's video is about the situation with COVID in Costa Rica, and I'm recording this in June 2021 just to give you the latest picture of how things are on the ground over there, and then also what you need to do in order to get in, and then after you finish your vacation, how to get out and back home. I did a video on this back in January, and it's actually been my most watched video. About 18,000 people watch it so far. And in preparation for this, when I was doing my homework, I went back and watched it again. And actually the situation is very similar. So if you haven't seen that one, I would say please watch that one as well, because a lot of the information is still valid. As a summary, I would say yes, come to Costa Rica. It is gorgeous. There are a few restrictions that I'll get into a little bit later, but in general there's vacancies in the hotels, there are cars available for renting, there aren't that many cars on the street. Tourism's less than normal. It's not, there's still lots of tourism going on, but less than normal, and mainly because there's no Canadians at the moment, of course. So I would definitely say, if you're on the fence about whether you should go or not, yes, definitely come down. I've split today's talk into 4 sections. So what preparation do you need in order to be able to fly? Then what are the general situation in the airports, how it is getting through, what's immigration like? Then how are things on the ground here? What are the beaches like? Are there bars and restaurants open? All that kind of thing. And then the final part is preparation for your return. If you do need a test, what kind of test and where you can get it. Below, I've done a whole load of links to resources that are really going to help you. So I've put the embassies for Britain, US, Canada and Costa Rica. So they're always keeping those updated, so it's really important that you read those to see if anything has changed after I've published this. Then there's a resource on where you can get tested here, and a whole lot of other good information. Now you need to do a passport before you come, you need to get insurance. So first section, before you fly. So the first thing to do is to check on your government's advice and your government's regulations for when you return from Costa Rica. And then as a separate exercise, take a look at the Costa Rican embassy's information as to whether Costa Rica is accepting people coming in from your home country. And they don't care what nationality you are, they just care about where you've been for the last 15 days. And Costa Rica made a decision sometime before Christmas where they were just going to let pretty much everybody in with no COVID tests. And it seemed a very, let's call it a bold move at the time, but it seems to have been borne out. There have been really very few cases at all in Costa Rica. There have been some outbreaks in San Jose, some of the big cities. There was one last month at sort of a peak, but not compared to what any other country have had. And where I am at the beach, there's been almost nothing. You hear of a case or two, and then it goes away, and you don't really hear about it. So anyway, I'll come on to that in a later section, but this section is preparing for your trip. Now, there are 2 things that Costa Rica does require for you to come in. One is for you to have an approved insurance for the duration of your stay, and the second thing is you need to fill in a health passport online. And below I've put links to 2 or 3 different insurance providers that are approved by the Costa Rican government, because what they want to know is if you get sick with COVID when you're in the country, you go to a Costa Rican hospital, if your insurance company is going to pay for it or they're going to be on the line for it. So that's why it needs to be a one that's approved by them. So you could try it using your normal insurance company, but it's a bit of a headache to, who do you go to actually find out if it's approved or not, and it's a bit of a pain. So the easiest thing, what everybody that I've met has been doing for the last few months, is have been going on one of these approved ones. And I've made it a point to ask clients that have flown in who they've used, and Trawick seems to be the most popular one, the easiest one to get, and a reasonable price. But check out the different options. The ones below, they're all approved. Seems to be if you declare a lower value for your flight, then the premiums go down. But then of course, if you're trying to claim for something to do with your flight and you've declared a lower flight price, then they're probably not going to cover you. So it just depends on where where you are with that. And premiums seem to be very reasonable. I had a friend of mine came in for the full 90-day stay, and I think he paid about $200 for the whole period. So, you know, if you're only coming down for a week, then I think the rates are going to be fairly reasonable. So once you've got your insurance signed up, then you need to fill in your Costa Rican health passport. Again, link below to that. And it's just very basic things. Have you had a cough? Have you got the insurance? Where's your passport? Who you're flying with? And that kind of thing. So that's a fairly straightforward thing to fill in. And then at the end of that, you get something sent to your email. I just save it onto your phone. You don't need to print it out. But you will need to show it at the airport and also when you come through immigration in Costa Rica. So, strangely enough, Costa Rica does not require you to have a COVID test before you fly. What you do need to do is obviously bring masks as you're going through the whole process from when you get to your airport, going through that whole thing on the plane, coming down here, and then until you get out onto the street, you will have to wear a mask. And now what I found, I mean, I had a long flight because I came from England, it was 12 hours or so. But what hurt was here behind my ears. And there are some nice masks, and you sort of have a clip that go behind here, which means it doesn't rub behind your ears. And I did a sort of note to self, for next time I do a long trip, I'm gonna look at one of those. The other thing that's changed because of COVID is you can't check in online with most airlines because they want to talk to you and check you've got all the requirements for when you get there. Because if you're missing a paper and you get returned away by the Costa Rican government, your airline's on the hook to fly you back. I've actually found the more stringent checks on the check-in point than when I've actually gone through immigration in the country I'm going to. Because I've flown quite a lot over the last year and a half, even through COVID. And I would say things are pretty much getting back to normal. I mean, there was a time when you thought there'd been a nuclear holocaust and no one had told you. I got to Madrid airport, which is one of the major airports in Europe, and it was just semi-dark, all the shops closed, restaurants closed. But when I last flew, which was about 2 weeks ago, seems to be pretty much getting back to normal. It seems to be in a really ideal situation that all the workers are back in the airports, but there aren't that many travellers, so actually you're getting through things quicker and you're getting served quicker and you're getting through the security lines quicker and everything. So it seems like it's at a good spot now. Now when you get to Costa Rica, people used to complain a bit because there were big lines waiting to get through immigration, and that seems much better now because as I said, all the workers are back at work. Immigration's taking longer per person because they're checking these other things, your health passport and your insurance. But there aren't as many tourists. So net effect is I think people are sailing through fairly quickly through Costa Rican immigration once you get here. Now, what's day-to-day living like here under the present rules? Things got tightened up a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, where they had all of the restaurants and bars closing at 9 p.m. and in San Jose it was even stricter. At one point there was nothing open there. And the rules are general for the whole country. What happens in Costa Rica, the further you get away from the capital, the less they seem to care about the rules. So for us in Tamarindo, which is 4 hours away from San Jose, things have been just like normal, really. We have had the 9 o'clock curfew, but then that sort of extends till 10, and really unless there's a police car like outside with its lights flashing, they just sort of let that go on. So really there haven't been any other noticeable effects really because of it, and so I would say just come down and just enjoy it. Do take common sense precautions. You need to wear a mask if you're going into supermarkets and shops and things like that, and you're supposed to wear them in restaurants when you're standing up. Once you're sitting at your seat, no. But again, often at the beaches they're open air anyway, and they tend to be pretty relaxed about those restrictions. If you're looking to find a party after 9 o'clock, there's always something going on. I mean, we almost every time we went out, when things started closing down, either there was a street party, people had got pickup trucks with coolers full of beers that they were selling for $2 or something, or down on the beach there was something going on, or a house party. So I'd say really it hasn't affected anything at all at the beaches. If you're in a minivan, being on a tour or whatever, they might ask you to wear the mask, but really that's it. There's no social distancing, and as I say, the beaches have been very, very few cases. Another thing that caused a bit of confusion is that there's a vehicular restriction. So the number plates in Costa Rica are all numbers, and whether you're an odd number or an even number on your number plate depicts whether you can drive Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, whatever. It does not apply to hire cars. So if you hide your car, as long as you've got your paperwork for the hire car, then you can drive any day of the week. Now, when you're preparing to go back home, you need to check again with your country's rules. If it's in the US, it's the CDC, or the same in Canada, in Britain, a different one. But just check what the requirements are. The airlines won't tell you. If you haven't checked with your home country, the first thing you'll hear you're in trouble is when you get to the airport and the airline won't let you back on. So it is worth checking it and just thinking it through. Now, for the US, you need a test, but it's only the antigen test. It's called the flow test or the quick test. And those you get the results within an hour or two. And they do them pretty much everywhere. They even do them in the airport. You can ask your hotel, the last hotel before you fly out. They may even have a service where they come to your hotel. The cheapest I've seen it was about $60 where you actually go to a clinic. And if you have a service in your room, obviously they're going to charge you a bit more. It just depends, 100 bucks, something like that. But then you're getting the results fairly quickly. And most countries you need to do that test a maximum of 3 days before you fly. Now with Britain and some of the European countries, you need to have the PCR test. In theory, they take 48 hours to get your results back, but you can only do it 3 days before, so you've only got a fairly tight window. I was in a really embarrassing situation because I was coming back, and as I was coming back, I took some video for some B-roll for this thing, and I thought I got everything organized. I showed up at the clinic 2 days before, and they told me that that was enough time to get the results. But because I was at the beach, and at the beach they can't process, they can't analyze the sample, they have to send it off to San Jose, and for reasons I won't go into, I was booked in for 1:30 to do the test, which would have, with 48 hours, would have given me time. But because I had to send the results out to San Jose, and the bus had already left, or the minivan, or whatever they were taking it in, and I wasn't going to get my results back, so I felt I'm going to be the worst person to explain to you guys how to get through this if I had missed my flight. But fortunately, I went to another clinic. I went to Beachside Clinic in Tamarindo, in Wacas. And they were brilliant, and it was just like boom, boom, boom all the way through. I mean, these girls, when they do it, they sort of stick it up your nose, what you think is as far as it can go, and then they stick it up a bit further and with it. I mean, the PCR test is not a pleasant thing at all, but you just get through it. It wasn't too bad. And I think I paid about $120 for mine. Again, they'll come to your hotel room and do it. But you do need to just think about that window of when you're flying, whatever. And it might be worth sort of a week before you're flying out, just make sure you've got something booked in, because it is a busy thing. Everybody needs it who's leaving. So it is worth just planning that part out. Now, when you go in for your test, before you actually have the test, in the clinic, they're going to ask you to fill out an online questionnaire designed by the Costa Rican government, and the Costa Ricans are not very good at forms, planning, advanced thinking. Sorry if I offend anybody. It's a horrible form to fill in, and you really need to check, because some boxes that are big are completely irrelevant and almost no one will want to do them, and then there's some other ones like hidden away at the top that are really important ones that you absolutely do need to fill in. And then you go through this whole thing, and at the end you press green send, and they go, no, you've missed a bit of information. Go up to the top, fill it in, and then you find out everything else has been erased and you need to go through it again. So I had to go through this like 5 or 6 times. So don't think it's you, it's them. But just go through it line by line. I was trying to do it on my phone, and it's just really small, and then you've got to scroll right and scroll down, and it was pretty hellish. But I just thought I'd mention that, just so you go through that with a lot of care and patience. Again, I tried to check in online with the route I've done 50 times, and they would not let me check in online to go back home. I had to allow a little bit more time at the airport, but then when I got to the airport, it was pretty empty, so we sort of sailed through pretty quickly. I flew with American, and they gave me quite a grilling at the airport, but they need to see your test and this and that, and then it was fairly straightforward. They're hot on you wearing your mask in the airport. They're checking as you go in and as you go through, so just make sure you've got one. Just an aside, not really to do with COVID, the airports in Costa Rica are such a rip-off. It's like, for a little bottle of water like this, they want $6 or $7, and in the supermarket it's $1 or $2, and it's obscene, and everyone's got the same standard costs. So I'd just make sure you eat and drink before you get in. Don't bank on buying anything in the airport unless you've got a lot of money left over that you really feel you need to spend. And other than that, I would say it's a really good time to be coming down. So, you know, just be conscious of where we are. I think that as soon as the Canadians are able to come down, we've got such a massive pent-up demand from Canadians, because Costa Rica has always been about 70% Americans, 20% Canadians, and 10% everything else. And we've missed all those guys for so many months now. So I think that as soon as the borders open for Canadians, and again, Canadians can go into Costa Rica. The problem is they can't get back home without doing this 10-day quarantine thing. So that's what's been holding them back. But I think as soon as they're allowed in, we're going to have a little bit of a rush down here as well. So I would say if you're able to get in right now, then now's a great time. Weather's good. Come down and see us. And when you're coming in, just hit me up, send me a message, and if you've got any questions, I'll be happy to answer them for you.